skAteSMR. Hello. Okay, so this video is for beginners who are thinking about trying skateboarding, trying to learn skating. This was a request, so I'll give you some tips on just basic stuff if you want to get into learning skateboarding. That sounded weird, but I'm sure you get the idea. So, if you don't know where to start, where to turn to, will be hopefully a little helpful. So let's begin. The best way to learn skating, how to skateboard, is practice. You need to practice a lot. And practice kind of sounds stupid. You just gotta go skate. That's the best way. Now, as far as picking a board, any board will do. Doesn't really matter. If you're very, very small, like I know a 6-year-old kid who started skateboarding and he's tiny, then you obviously want to find, or not obviously, but you probably would want to find a very small skateboard. Or smaller, not the normal size skateboards can, people can use from teens to even younger than teens, probably about 10 and up, all the way till a grown adult can use a normal size skateboard. Now, I'm not talking about a long board. That's something different. That's an extra long board that is meant for cruising and a nice smooth ride, and not really meant for tricks. Well, not meant for tricks. I mean, it is possible to do stuff on it, but it's mostly for people who just like to cruise or more casual skater. True skaters, though, who ride real boards, that you can do tricks on. A lot of people probably go for the longboard because they don't want to take the time, or they're intimidated by a normal skateboard. But anyways, either way, it's, I get down with both. I mean, I don't longboard, but I've tried it a couple times and it is very nice and smooth. But I'm all about my normal skateboard, because I have to be able to do tricks. Like if I want to ollie up a curb, that would piss me off if I was on a longboard. So anyways, you get the idea. I like normal boards. So a normal board will be fine for anybody, unless you're incredibly young and incredibly small. Then you might want to get a smaller board. Okay, anyways. Now, as for being a total beginner, any skateboard will do. You can go to go to any sports store, and buy a cheap, super crappy skateboard, and you know what? That'll be fine. Obviously, they suck and they're horrible, and if you want to go to a real skate shop and get a real board, which would probably be around, depending on where you go, we'll just say you don't know what you're doing, so you get a complete, could be like $160, $180, anywhere from $100 to $200, we'll just say, depending on the different items and how much they're trying to charge you, and etc., etc. So if you want to do that, that's fine. It's just going to be a little better quality, better for tricks. The wheels are going to roll smoother and faster. All those things you don't really need when you're first learning. So if you're first learning, any crappy, cheap skateboard will do. Like I said, the better the quality of the board, of course it's better, but I'm just saying that if you want to go buy a cheap skateboard, that's perfect. That's how I started. I got a gift, a crappy skateboard, and you know what? I learned how to skate on it. And then when I went to a good board, it was just so much better. Like, I learned so much more. But I'm glad that I learned on the crappier one, because it wasn't as fast. So it was easier to learn on. But, so, any crappy skateboard will do. Because in the beginning, all you're going to learn how to do is how to ride. Now, there's two different ways to ride. You have regular stance, which is your left foot is in the front when you're standing on your board with both feet on your skateboard. And you have goofy stance, which is what I am, which is with your right foot forward. Your right foot is on the front of the board when you're riding. Now, it's just whatever's comfy for you. A good way to figure out which way you ride is to take your skateboard or any type of board, put it in the grass or on carpet, and just kind of walk up and jump on it. And whatever way feels naturally good for you is the way you should probably ride, or is the way that you ride. So whichever way feels comfortable. You could try out either, but I remember I wasn't really sure at first, but riding goofy just felt a little bit better. So when I would jump on my board, I would always kind of just want to jump in the goofy stance. So that's one way you could figure out which way to ride, or you could just try either and see what works best for you. Another thing is pushing, like when you're actually moving on your skateboard. Whatever stance you ride with, as in goofy is right foot forward and regular stance is left foot forward, you always want to push with your back foot. So your front foot should always stay on the board and your back foot should be the pushing foot. A lot of people, not a lot, but some people start off and they just like to, it's called pushing Mongo, and it's kind of frowned upon. You might even get made fun of. If you're a beginner, not a big deal. A lot of beginners start this way. Luckily, I didn't. Not that it matters, but hey, it's just looked down upon because it's not as, once you're very good at skating, you can kind of understand this, that it just doesn't work as well. Like, you want your front foot on the board to help guide you while you push. Whereas if you're pushing with your front foot and only your back foot is on the board, like your foot is towards the back of the board and there's so much empty board in the front and you're pushing it along, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look good. But more importantly than that, it doesn't work good. As good. I mean, it's fine. Because one thing is, once you get good and you start skating, switch. Now, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself, but whatever stance you skate, the opposite stance is switch. So I'm goofy-footed. So when I skate regular-footed, I'm skating switch. And it's fun and it's cool because it's actually a challenge. It's harder. So if I do some switch tricks, they'll look different. Some actually might look better than my normal tricks. But it's looked at as kind of better. Like if you hit a kickflip, but then you rolled up and hit a switch kickflip, people would be like, oh wow, he could do a switch kickflip. So that's what switch is. Switch is skating the opposite stance, which is more of a challenge, and it's somewhat looked at as a better trick in some ways. No trick is really better than, it's all personal preference, but I think you get what I'm saying. Now, back to my point. When you're skating switch, it's not frowned upon as much to push Mongo, meaning that your back foot is on the board and your front foot's pushing. So, it kind of lets people know that you're skating switch, which sounds totally lame, but I mean, whatever. But it still does look awkward. But as long as people can tell you're skating switch and doing switch tricks, nobody really cares that you're pushing Mongo, because you're skating switch, which is hard enough as it is in some ways. Some people are better at switch. Okay, I'm getting off topic, but basically, you don't want to push Mongo. So, switch pushing Mongo is okay, but so it's good to just stop from the beginning. Now, when you start skating, and if you push Mongo, that's okay, but you might as well try to correct it early. It just makes things easier, and you won't get made fun of. But, like I said, it's not a big deal, but it does make a slight difference. Pushing normal it works a lot better. You have better control of your board, So, always try to keep your front foot on the board and push with your back foot. And when I say push, I mean that's when your foot comes off and hits the ground in order to make you move. Okay, now, so you got your crappy skateboard, you're not pushing Mongo, you figured out your stance. Now, what you want to do is just ride and practice. I don't like the word practice. Skateboarding is about having fun. It's not a sport. So, just go out and skate, and the more you skate, the better you get. And that's kind of a long story short. That's the best advice I can give. There's no magical secrets to skating. You just have to go do it. Obviously, you can look up tips and stuff like that, and I will be doing some tutorials when I get the time, but essentially, if you want to know how to do a trick and you're asking somebody, they're just going to say, try it. You just have to figure it out. Your muscles in your legs just have to learn, You can't read a book and then be able to do any trick. It's like any other sport, kind of, where, let's say like gymnastics. You can't just read a book and then all of a sudden do like a flip off of a handstand. Like, you have to build up those muscles, kind of. Now, skateboarding, you may not think about muscles as much, but there's all these mini muscle memory that you build up. It doesn't mean your legs get buff, but skateboarding uses very unique muscles. You'll notice when you first start, certain areas of your legs are getting sore. And after a while, that goes away, and you get better and better at skating. So, you're using these weird muscles, and then your body gets used to it, and that's how you get better. And when you're trying a trick, you're using certain muscles, and you can't do it at first. You don't even get close. And the more and more you do it, the closer and closer you will get. So, what else can I talk about? So just get good at riding. If you have a skate park around, that's fine. That's fine, but I think it's a lot better to wait to go to a skate park. Well, you're going to want to go to a skate park just to try out some ramps and stuff, which is fine. But I think the best way to learn, kind of what I did, is I stayed away from skate parks, pretty much, and just stuck to my street, like outside my house, around your neighborhood, and just skate the street, because, you don't want to be in people's ways, and, you gotta crawl before you can walk. So skating out in front in your street or your driveway you can skate around your driveway, but try to find a parking lot even, and just learn how to skate. That's probably going to be the best place to learn. Another thing is to skate places, like skate to your buddy's house, skate to the store. This way it'll make you good, because the harder, it's kind of like the harder your upbringing is in life, the tougher you become, the harder your skateboarding learning experiences are, the better you're going to get. So if you skate to your buddy's house who's pretty far away, not only are you skating a long distance, but you are probably skating over cracks, over rough ground, over different types of ground. You might even hit a few rocks, maybe fall a couple times, but it's going to make you good. It's going to get you better and get you prepared. Now, when you're riding, you might want to always be aware, always be ready to jump off your board. Okay, yeah, how about we'll talk about stopping. When you're on your board, push it a couple times with your foot and you'll be riding. And at first, stopping is pretty hard, learning how to stop. Well, it's not. What you can do, basically, what I did, what I think is a good thing for beginners, is to just jump off your board and land on your feet, and you should be fine. So if you're going too fast and you're scared, jump off your board, land on your feet, and start running a little, and, just try to stay up on your feet without falling. Now when you're riding, especially when you're starting, you're going to be all stiff and you're going to be unfamiliar with things, and you might hit a rock, you might hit a crack, and you're going to fall. So, which sucks, but here's the mark of a skater, is if you can fall and take a few slams, take a few injuries, hopefully not serious injuries, and you still want to learn to skate and you still enjoy skating, that right there will make you a skater. I remember when I first started, I remember that thought went boom right through my head, and it was like a lesson that I instantly learned, because I remember I was learning how to skate, I was still a beginner, and I went and I rode down this big hill in my neighborhood, and you want to be careful with big hills, especially because if your board starts fishtailing, meaning like you're not even trying to turn, but your board just is like wobbling back and forth, like turning insanely fast, like one way, and you're just wobbling, and then you just fall because you can't control your board. You want to be careful of that. Now, when I was doing this back in the day, I don't remember if I just got speed wobbles or if I hit a rock or something, but I remember I was riding down the hill, hit the rock, hit whatever, I fell, got all scraped up, and I jumped back up, picked up my board, and I wasn't really fazed. I wasn't happy, but I was like, holy crap. And my arm was all scraped up and bleeding, my knee was, but you know what, it didn't discourage me. And that's when I knew. I was like, well, maybe I didn't know then, but now I can look back and be like, that's what makes you a skater. 90% of people, when they try skating, they might step on a board and instantly fall. They might skate for a week and then fall. And after that first fall, they might say, screw this, and quit. 90% of people do that. From one fall, they quit. They say they suck, or it's too dangerous, or this and that. But if you can fall and not really get too discouraged and want to keep going, that's how you become a skater. It's funny, because once that happens, and then you get a little better, and you're falling less, you're more experienced, and all of a sudden, you don't have to worry about, all of a sudden you get good, and you're like, holy crap, I'm glad I stuck with this. I'm glad I kept learning, because now I can skate, and now I'm not even falling anymore. And 90% of people can't even ride a skateboard, and if they did, they would fall, or they were scared, or if it was too hard for them. But it's funny how if you just stick with it a little bit, you can actually learn it. It's not that difficult. It does take a while, but once you learn it, you're going to be satisfied that you did, is what I'm saying. And that's just one thing that separates a lot of people, is so many people have a fall and then they quit. I remember that back in the day, and now it's like years later, they will always be like, oh yeah, I skated once, but I fell and I quit. And now here I am, and just think of all the tricks that I can do and all the fun that I've had, and it's something that never goes away. I'll always know how to skate. Even if I don't skate in many years, I can jump back on a board and know what to do. I mean, I might be a little rusty, but if I don't skate for like a year, for some reason, when I get back on the board, I'm kind of gonna suck a little bit. And this is another thing that discourages people after an injury or after something or after quitting for a while, is you're gonna suck when you get back on the board, most likely. And some people get discouraged and be like, oh, I lost everything, I quit. But what's funny is, you might suck, but after you skate a while, you'll start to get back a little bit. And then the next day, you'll be even more back a little bit. And then by like the third day, or the next week, all of a sudden, it's like you never quit. It's like you never took that year off. It's instantly back. So you never lose your skills, pretty much, for the most part. Maybe certain tricks, but if you take off for a long time and you're rusty, I guarantee you, if you just try a few more days, another week, all of a sudden, at least within 2 weeks, mostly within a week, my thing is probably the third time you skate, it'll be like you never even quit. You'll have everything back. So, I don't even remember what I was talking about before that, but once you have your first fall, that's kind of a turning point. You're either going to quit, or you're going to be like, not a big deal, and I'm going to be a skater. Boom, and then you're going to learn. So, I don't know, I just think that's kind of interesting. So if you can handle some slams and keep at it, you're only going to get better, and then you're going to fall less. You're going to slam less. So, but you know what? When you're learning, you're most likely going to slam. So just think about that it's going to happen, okay? You're going to hit a rock. But, so now back to the tips. When you're riding, you'll learn this with the more that you fall and the more that whatever, but always be ready. If you have this readiness in your legs and your body, like you're always ready to jump off the board, you might hit a pebble, and instead of falling and getting hurt really bad, you hit the pebble and then you instantly jump and land on your feet. It's hard to do, but if you just stay ready and stay alert, it is possible. So, always, and not even with rocks, with anything, just always be ready to always anticipate a fall. And if you can anticipate it, you can beat it, and you can not even end up falling. You can end up landing on your feet. Now, if you do fall, you might not be able to control things because you're going to be mid-air and then slamming on the ground. But always try to roll and distribute your energy. Just like when a guy does parkour, like an urban ninja, which, I've done a lot of stuff like that. But, like, let's say you jump off of a building, when you hit the ground, you're gonna, like, hurt yourself, kind of. But if you hit the ground and then do a roll, like a somersault, like instantly, like you hit the ground and you instantly somersault, you actually spread the impact. That's why they do that. Because your feet touch the ground a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're rolling, your back's touching the ground, you're rolling forward, and you're up on your feet, and you're totally fine. Whereas if you just jumped down and landed on your feet are absorbing all of that impact, and it's going to hurt. So when you fall, try to roll forward and distribute the energy to lessen the pain of the slam. Well, I think I gave you guys some good tips. Let me think of what else. So basically, figure out your stance. Any skateboard will do, doesn't matter. Learn how to ride, keep practicing. Don't get discouraged if you fall, or try not to. I mean, it's all up to you. But always be ready to jump off your board. And then eventually you can learn to slow down and stop by taking your foot off, and you're almost like you're pushing, but you're actually not pushing. You're slowing yourself down. But before that, you could just jump off your board and land on your feet. And then you're just going to keep getting better and better and better. You're going to want to get skate shoes. Not 100% necessary, but definitely recommended. If you're poor and you still want to learn, that's totally fine, But the thing about skate shoes is they have a flat bottom, and it's pretty good for gripping your board. But honestly, you can learn to skateboard in any type of shoe. You can even learn to skateboard with no shoes. Do I recommend it? No, but it's possible. I mean, I think I did. I probably had some basketball shoes back in the day and jumped on some skateboards and rode around. No big deal. But so skate shoes are definite plus. You can find some cheap ones, at a cheap store, like some Airwalks or some NSS is the brand. NSS. I don't know if they're still around, but you can find some cheap skate shoes. And then get any type of board and just learn how to ride. Once you get really good at riding, maybe you could try doing some ollies, which is when you jump. Now, as with ollieing and as with any trick, all you can have to do is practice. You might not be able to even come close to ollieing, but little by little, you'll come closer, closer, closer. Then all of a sudden, you might get like a little 1 centimeter ollie. And you know what? That's an ollie, so that counts. And just keep doing that, and keep getting better and better and better. Keep trying, and eventually you'll have 2 centimeter high ollie. And then you'll be doing ollies as high as 1 inch. And then 2 inches, and then you'll ollie while moving, and then you can ollie over cracks in the sidewalk or something, and then you can start ollieing over things, and you'll just get better and better and better. So all you gotta do is practice. Well, I hope this, oh yes, and as far as picking out a board, any board should be fine. As far as widths and lengths of the board, most of the lengths are the same, but the width, some boards are wider than others. I used to skate a board that was 7.5 inches wide, which is pretty small, or pretty skinny, I guess. But now I skate, 8 inches, which is a lot of people nowadays skate wider boards. Now, if you're talking about super, super wide, like 9-inch, those are more for ramps and cruising and like old school style, kind of. But anything is possible. You can still do every trick you can do on it. It's just more of a nice cruiser. So, width doesn't really matter. None of the aspects of the board really matter until you start getting good and you start liking certain things. It's all personal preference. If you like a skinny board because it makes you flip it easier, or if you like a wider board because your feet are nice and not hanging off, it's all personal preference. So when you're starting out, it doesn't really matter. Get yourself a board, learn how to ride, and just keep practicing and don't get discouraged. And you will get better and better. Every single skateboarder sucks one day when they first started. So as long as you're trying hard and you got the heart of a skater, like you're not a poser, everyone has to learn somewhere, and skaters will respect that. If they see you learning, they'll know this guy's learning, And if they see you with heart and like determination, and you're trying to learn how to ride, you're trying to learn how to ride down a ramp, you're taking some falls, you're getting back up and still going at it, you'll get respect even from good skaters who've been skating for years. So just get out there and give it your all. And I hope this video was informative. That's basically it for now. So, good luck, happy skating, and have a good night.